That's the one thing that as you continue to use AI in the creation part of it is it learns your voice and learns how you want to share uh, brand yourself in the way of your content and making it a little more unique, most importantly, more you. And I
Yep.
think that's where a lot of people get tripped up in the at least the early stages is uh, they're not fully educated on how to customize AI to who you are and what your business is.
Well, we're back at the transfer today with another great conversation lined up. So today I have Vaughn Sigmon. Vaughn is the co-founder of Results Driven Leadership, which he'll tell you a little bit more about, but it is an online management training platform, and they have a very, very simple mission. It's really to develop managers who move the needle both in the boardroom and with their sales team. So thank you so much, Vaughn, for being here today. Why don't you do a quick introduction and tell everyone about yourself?
Thank you, Carolyn. Well, I had a very long career in retail. I finally had my last boss in 2014. I'd had lots of bosses, a lot of great ones, but I'd had one. This one was going to put me in retirement. So I retired.
Yeah, good.
I retired. Thankfully, the companies had been good to me. I was able to take some time off and figure out what I was going to do. I was still in my 50s and I knew retirement work was my hobby. So, not working was not an option. So that led me in a long way to results driven leadership. It went through some metamorphoses and some different iterations, but I finally aligned on what I felt most comfortable with and how I could best serve my clients. And I'm a little bit of a Swiss Army knife to many of my clients, but primarily working with leadership on how to treat employees, having good EQ, how to back off from the command and control approach to leadership. And that works with no one. But what do I do otherwise? Most
Yep.
managers have never been shown how to manage or lead a team, and that's what I'm here for.
Gotcha. So, results driven leadership, how long have you truly been up and running and making an impact with your client base?
11 years.
11 years already. So, that's a long time, right? You've seen a lot of things happen, change. What are some of the focus areas now? You're in 2026. We're navigating lots of excitement happening in the business world in general, right? AI tools flooding the market every day. What are some of the things on your radar that you're focused on for the year?
Well, it's really 2 parts, Carolyn. It's refining my modules, my courses, keeping them up to date and current and relevant. And we're gonna talk about AI, I know, in a little bit, but man, has that made a difference. And
Yeah.
then secondly, it's making sure that I'm out there getting myself exposed enough through video, podcast, so there's a marketing arm to it as well. And, so those are the 2 things I'm really primarily focusing on.
Always gotta be improving your product, but then also making sure you're getting that product in front of the right people who may have the need for some support, right?
Right.
What does that process look like for you right now when it comes to I'm as a marketer, of 20 plus years, I'm always curious to hear how others are doing it. What does that look like for you on the day to day when you're trying to grow your business?
Well, it's understanding where your audience is and how to reach them, of course, and all the different platforms. So many people starting a consulting or training business like myself have no marketing background, so they have no idea how to go out and get themselves exposed so they can talk to clients. You know, I went through that same first year and a half where I kept hearing, you know, follow follow the process, finally pay off, follow the process. And I go, I'm not sure I have a process. And I got myself educated. And then truly it tested my patience because I want everything yesterday. But
Mm.
once I finally figured out between LinkedIn, my podcast, email marketing, joining other people's podcast, YouTube, all the different platforms that I finally figured out where my audience resides, certainly blogging and writing articles and just allowing people who might be interested in utilizing some leadership development to come find me, making it easy for them. So it was a long, hard, I think I made $0 in my first year. I might have paid myself, but I'd made no money. And it was really in the third year before, and gosh, that's common. You've probably heard that. It takes 3 years to figure out, how to really get this business launched. So I went through my 3-year learning period, and it finally started clicking in. But it's, how do I now use some automations in a broader way to cut down on my time spent on recording, filming, writing, etc. And boy, my life has changed since January of 2023 when I first found out about this whole AI thing. So the second part of that is, how can I use technology to minimize my time spent to get the maximum amount of exposure?
I love that. Would you mind sharing an example of something that has been maybe a game changer shift from like 2023 to like, now I put this in place and holy smokes, I'm saving all this time, or it's helping me with new client acquisition? I love the real world examples. So it becomes, can anchor us in practicality.
Well, in honesty, my podcast, blogging, LinkedIn post, I learned early on to repurpose all of that. I needed to do one thing and then carve it up into whatever that audience was going to resonate with. Where I used to spend almost a complete day, day and a half getting that done each week, between the writing, the filming, the scripting, the editing. All of these great tools have come along where I can do that in a couple hours a week. And now I've got a executive assistant who aids with a lot of that. Thank God I found Ashley a few years ago, but she's very bright. She understands technology quite well and is able, and understands my brand and what I do very well, and is able to put that together with a minimum amount of effort. That's one thing as any business owner has to understand is, what are your strengths? Play to those. What are your shortcomings? Hire somebody for that. And that's
Fill the gap.
and Ashley is the person that makes up for all my shortcomings. So it's gone from a day and a half or more, a lot of Saturdays because I was busy during the week,
Yep.
part Saturday, part Sunday, to where I now take weekends off, which is awesome. And my content is better than ever. That's the one thing that, as you continue to use AI in the creation part of it, is it learns your voice and learns how you want to share uh, brand yourself in the way of your content, and making it a little more unique, most importantly, more you. And I
Yep.
think that's where a lot of people get tripped up in at least the early stages, is uh, they're not fully educated on how to customize AI to who you are and what your business is.
Well, I like, wow, you're balancing being true to yourself with using the tools to have efficiency, move faster, make more things, disperse them in a different way or disperse them faster, because we're just in such an interesting time right now where we're starting to blur, whatever you see online. LinkedIn's a great example. There's a lot where you're like, man, that looks like it's just this person's pumping out a bunch of AI content. I'm not, good or bad. It doesn't mean that content won't resonate, but I do think there's a huge swing to authenticity and still having human expertise and human judgment and why you want to hire someone to help you, whether it's, for leadership training. So I love hearing, a story of still me. It's my voice, it's my brand. I'm using it to make sure I'm really sharpening that and making things in a more efficient way, but not losing the human part of what makes you someone you'd want to hire, right?
Very much so.
Now, when your clients are coming to you with challenges, I'm so curious, like what a day-to-day conversation, what does it look like when they're reaching out saying, listen, I need results-driven leadership. I need some guidance. What are some of their bigger pain points that you're helping them solve?
Well, the one thing that everybody has to embrace if they're going to be in management or business ownership is, no matter what business you're in the people business. And
Ooh.
so 90+% of all the challenges we face in business are people related. And it's understanding people, how to be able to relate to their strengths, their behavior profile, and adapt your communication to what they need. It's that one of the other huge mistakes that leaders or managers make is approaching the world with the bias that everybody thinks and processes information the way they do, and it's
Mm.
just not true. And it's like they have one tool, and that's the only tool they have, and sometimes it works, often it does not. How do I get myself out of this? Where am I? Where do I need to be? And how do I get there? And so
Mhm.
we have lots of conversations. If it's a performance issue, it's a people problem. But we then have to determine, is it a leadership problem, or is it a training problem, or is it skill, will? What's the situation? Then what do I go from there? How do I carve this up knowing that I can't just tell somebody to do something? It's the proper approach to coaching and collaborating with their direct reports to understand how they need to be able to be completely bought in. You can't, there's something else I say a lot. We're much more likely to do what we say we're going to do versus being or following through and doing what we are told to do. There's a human element to that that many
Mhm.
managers just lose or are not aware of. And it's hard. It's a huge change for people to be able to, instead of tell, to ask questions for self-discovery. It takes longer, yes, but it's much more effective. So most of what I deal with are people issues, and it's either on the leadership part or the direct report or the team part. And what tools are we missing? What elements of pure leadership or management are we missing out on? How can we sharpen that saw to get better at it, to get a bigger outcome from what we're looking for?
Those are complex challenges too in a lot of ways when you're dealing with, trying to run a business, you're trying to manage, get the most out of, your relationships with your staff. I feel like you've got leaders who have at least a good bit of self-awareness, even knowing they need to go through a training like that. Cause, you know, it's like the first step is admitting I need help, right? And I think in some
Amen.
cases, you have many leaders who never come to that realization. They're just like, yeah, what I'm doing's fine, right? And,
Well,
if asked their staff, they may have a different take.
yeah, and it's honestly, Carolyn, it is the rare leader who is open to self-discovery and examining themselves. I'll take, for example, sales management, which is one of the most important roles in any organization. 95% of all sales managers I come across were promoted from within. They were a great salesperson. Now they're a sales manager. And it's a sudden realization, a harsh realization that what I did to be successful in sales has nothing to do with what I need to be doing in the way of sales management. It's a polar opposite. And so they make a lot of missteps, a lot of mistakes, a lot of shortcomings, but most have never sought any kind of advice. Nothing. And it's like the meme of somebody banging their head against a
Mhm.
wall, and wondering, wishing for a better outcome. It's just not going to come, and so it's really easy as human nature to blame the team. It's just hard to find good people, and wow, these people are so dumb today, or all the things I've heard to varying extremes. But
I'm sure you've heard a lot of rants and
yeah,
finger
absolutely.
kind of the
And
blaming.
yeah, and I'm more than willing to listen to all that, but I have to bring everybody back, no matter what role they're in. And the three most important words in leadership are, "It's my fault."
It's one of my favorite things I used to say as a manager. I always wanted my team to feel like there was a level of safety in how we were working, and again, it was marketing, it was advertising. No lives will be lost. I always try to keep that perspective because sometimes things can feel so intense and stressful, especially in kind of client service environments. But if it goes wrong, if there's a challenge, I was like, blame me. It's my fault. It all rolls up to me. So just, there's safety in trying something, failing. But I did, in working with teams, you realize that's not always the mindset, right, of every leader. So So tell me a little bit about the tools you've put in place because I see that, I'd imagine you're still balancing some level of in-person training events, right? Depending on what the kind of, the relationship or, project is you're doing for a client. But then you do have this online component of it as well. Did you start with kind of a digital setup in your business model or did that evolve down the road? I love kind of hearing a little bit about how you're blending the in-person components with the digital tools.
Excellent question. And no, it started out as pure live, either via Zoom or Teams, live events, seminars, and then, one day is almost out of necessity is, there's only, I had a team or I still have a team of 2 or 3 other guys that work with me on and off, and we can't be everywhere at once. There's this wide world of individuals out there that are interested in doing this. I just can't reach them. The discovery for me was, looking at the, statistics from my podcast. I had many listeners in Ireland and Australia and England and Italy and I'm huge in Belarus. No, I'm kidding. Uh,
I love
number
it.
one in
You're
Belarus.
signing
Oh,
paper, you're signing autographs, and if you land in Belarus on a
oh yeah, there'll
Tuesday.
be a line when I get there. But but it's, wow, why don't I sit down, put the effort into and I wish AI was around when I originally did this, but
Yeah.
sit down, record these sessions that I normally do in front of groups and get it out there in the way of content. So it was a transformation into from a realization to get it done. What held me off for a long time was just the amount of work it was going to take to get all that recording done.
Yeah.
Benefit and a shortcoming is I've built lots of content through the years. If I'm gonna get it out there, it's going to take a lot of work in the way of
Mhm.
recording and podcast, etcetera, to get it
Gotta get
out.
all this out. Get it out
Hard to
of you.
do. And so it's, being able to, um, get out as many people. I think I've had 1,800 people so far go through my online courses. Very proud of that. And, but again, I started this 12 years ago. The world's changed dramatically in 12 years. And so now I'm in the process of going back through and updating all those recordings and videos. And, but with AI like Descript, um,
Mhm. It's a great tool.
do it like that. It's one of my favorites. And, it makes editing almost, excuse me, idiot proof. Just
Mm.
my cockapoo back here could figure it out. So, anybody can do it if they can do it. But it's finding those tools. That was, it's you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find the one
Mhm.
or the ones that are gonna work for you, and there's no one size fits all. They all do different things better, and it's being able to pull all of this together is, again, back to the process, utilize and create a process to get it done for you with efficiency in mind.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things I think is so exciting, but also equally as overwhelming for business owners right now is, this idea of, you know, I need to have I need to be using AI and it's almost a thing, a tool. And there's so many, but it's like, what's your goal? Is it trying to, like you said, update my content? What am I going for? And then how do you look at the right tools and technology to figure it out? But man, every day there is a new one on the market too, which man, you can feel the flood coming, right? It's like clearly we're in this moment. It was like when the internet hit, right? It was like, oh my God, this is really going to impact businesses. What's email? Oh, we're no longer sending written memos around that people sign. Like that was a huge game changer. And we're definitely in that moment now. How do you kind of navigate that and figure it out? Is it like you said, just trying things quick, try it, move on if it doesn't work, or a lot of just asking around? Curious how you navigate all those options that are out there nowadays.
Well, you have to be looking for new tools. Sometimes you'll trip across some, but you have to read a lot. You have to talk to a lot of people. You have to get ideas and use cases out of others. Um, and go and try things. That's another nice thing is that most of these AI tools are very cost effective.
Mhm.
And you can always get a free trial for whatever that's worth. But it's uh, I discovered a new photo generator a couple weeks ago, and I could have spent the entire day on. I think it's buy a cup of coffee. And some of them have such great names, but it's wow, this is so easy and it's so it does things the first time right. And but if I was not searching around trying to find these things on a
Mhm.
regular basis, never would have found it. So curiosity is a huge part of it. Uh, Continuing to challenge yourself to be curious and go find all these great tools. I remember distinctly the first day I was introduced to ChatGPT, which was January of 2023, I think, and I was like, "Oh, what is this, and what am I gonna do with it?" And,
What is this wizardry?
well, and honestly, for the first year, I was like this genius going around telling everybody, "Well, just use ChatGPT." "What's that?" "Oh, you're a genius. Oh my gosh, this makes life so easy." But it's, even people who have discovered it to know the extent of which it can help you. I worked with one company that created an entire SOP manual through ChatGPT, and it knows every ERP system out there. So you tell it what ERP, you load some. This is oversimplification. You load your documents in there, and boom, it starts spitting it out. What would have cost you tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of man hours to get it done in a matter of a few hours it was done. So it's utilizing and understanding the breadth of which AI can help you and what tool can do that. And then, you know, ChatGPT only goes so far. Claude, which is my second favorite, maybe sometimes my first favorite, slower, but man, does it create beautiful documents and generally does things the first time perfectly, formats things very nicely. And then there's those, I'll give an example. Well, maybe I shouldn't say the brand. It was an AI voice generator to capture notes from all my coachings and trainings that were going to turn that into words. And that was it wasn't a huge investment, but you wore this little pin on your shirt or you put it in the middle of the table and it's supposed to document everything. It was horrible. Just too soon.
It's
It'll
just
be
like, it
fine
was
someday.
trying.
Yeah, but I'd love to be an early adopter, and that one was just too soon. So you have to test, keep looking. There's just a mountain of things, and like you said previously, it's coming fast and furious. And so you have to constantly keep your eyes and ears open and educate yourself.
Yeah. Now, do you find your conversations with your clients on the leadership side of things, is technology starting to kind of make its way into those conversations? I know we're still managing humans, right? And you're trying to get better at that, but I'm curious if you're starting to have conversations where it's like how do I connect better with my staff? And then how am I using technology to help enable that process too? Anything like
Well,
that in bubbling up in your conversations?
yeah, and I haven't explored the automation of an actual coaching session. It's becoming a thing. Don't tell anybody,
Mhm.
but it's becoming a thing, and I think it's a ways away from understanding all the nuances of a human's brain and behaviors. But I'm starting to see coaching AI where if I'm a business owner, I'm having a people problem, I go in and tell it, and it's giving me the tools or the ideas what to go do with it. And then there's the next step and the next step and the next step. Now that I know this, what do I do with it? I'm not going to read something and just know how to do it. How do I practice it? What forms do I need? How do I deliver it? When do I deliver it? Why do I deliver it? What's the script for this delivery? AI hasn't quite figured out all those elements yet, but the day's coming where, folks like myself, hopefully will never become dinosaurs, but we all have to look at that. Your competition is always looking for better ways to do things. And fortunately, I've got enough fire lit under most of my clients to be out in the front of their competition, finding ways to stay ahead. Um, and so, but they use AI to figure out what AI to use for them. And so, say it's certainly more tailored that way, and they're also learning. I want them all to learn to be self-dependent on, especially the coaching side. My job is really to work myself out of a job with each client.
You wanna coach them so they don't need you anymore,
Yeah,
right? Is the
exactly.
love that. The ultimate goal of helping someone grow and develop is I do think though, like you said, it's one thing to read, and that's some of the beauty of all of this is you can get smart very quickly on a lot of different things now in a whole different way. And yeah, you gotta make sure, it's still pulling and sourcing and all that, and you wanna make sure it's legitimate, but lot more at your fingertips, right? To get smart on things, but true habit in the day-to-day of managing teams and working with people and collaborating, you need to build that muscle memory, and it's not just going to be reading the results of a really good prompt, right? There's a whole different, application part that I think the human accountability, it talks very, AI has a tone and it will talk to you, tends to lean toward that positive, no matter, even if you're interrogating something or saying, no, that's not right. It's still got such a, you may not get always that honest human level,
That's
brutal honesty you need.
that should all come with a warning label on that because it will
Yeah.
compliment you and give you a little bit of a misdiagnosis about yourself.
You're absolutely right. It can be great if you need the positive boost, but also, got to use it with the right level of, well, do I take this with a grain of salt a little bit? All right. So let's shift gears a bit to the future for your business in 2026. What are some things that you're working toward for this year ahead? Some goals or things that you're excited about?
I was at a marketing conference a couple years ago. It was all AI for marketing purposes. And I watched an entire video podcast that was generated by a process, several AIs to get it all done. I would love to this year. My goal is to start generating shorts that are generated through AI for multi-purposes, and to one save me a ton of time, but it's just as good once it understands who you are. It's just as good at the human element.
Mhm.
And so it's starting to generate more and more video content without me having to be in front of a camera.
Are you, for the podcast you're recording now, do you have video components of that you're capturing as well so you can repurpose and recut smart? Yeah, if the more you feed it too, the more it'll have to work with, right? So a lot of that, what you get out is what you put in. So you've got a really strong foundation to absolutely make that a reality this year.
Yep, and especially on the editing side, it's different platforms are more attracted to different links and components. And so you can do a 30-second video, you can do a 15-second video, you can do a 30-minute video, all with the same content with easy delivery. But again, it's a huge time saver, but you have to know who likes what and when, and staying on top of that. But
And that
I think you're probably capable. My wife and I, she has a coaching business as well, a life coaching business, where we use it so much that we can now, in many cases, where people are not educating their AI how to make it more about themselves, we can spot AI from a mile away. And I think the audience is starting to see more and more of that. And you have to be authentic, and it's marrying authenticity with AI that I think is going to be the biggest challenge for me, frankly. But I think for most people in the content creation world, or it's being able to marry those two. And
oh, yeah.
because if you're inauthentic, it's pretty worthless.
Oh, you said it. I think that's because of all these tools and technology allowing, editing to be easier or versioning things out and automating the distribution of the content and all that stuff can be done. But then you get into, that AI slop that you can feel sometimes, and it's on every channel now. So truly the things that are going to jump out at you are the things that emotionally resonate with you and feel like, a human talking to you about, yeah, I do have that challenge. I have that leadership problem. I could use some support, but I do think the more we have that isn't so authentic anymore is really everybody's spidey senses are going up a lot more on that authenticity. And if you can make it, that's great, but you make it to do something. And if hopefully there there is all the measurement that goes with it too to make sure, yeah, is it working? Is it actually connecting? Maybe it's less and I need just some to do better with with less and actually make sure you're maintaining that part of it because it's going to be the more of the it's not the norm. Sometimes you feel like you can see it, like you said, you and your wife are like, oh, good example of what not to do. But the authenticity part's going to be even more important, I think, as
Well,
this we kind of get
people are
hammered.
going to connect with not only the authenticity, but the value. And, is making sure that however you're designing your AI to make sure it's building the value into it as well. It's how the depth you can get into, people will pay when they realize the help they're gonna get out of it. It's an intangible return on investment sometimes, but it very often ends up in a very tangible return on investment in time. But you've got to be able to utilize this not only for being authentic and real, but also getting the depth of the value so that people are really getting into the lower regions, the heart and soul of what needs to improve or change.
I love that. Well, I think that is a really, really kind of strong point to end on. If people listening want to connect with you, need some support from a training standpoint, what's the best way to get in touch and reach out?
Please visit my website, rdltraining.com. That's Romeo Delta Lima training.com. I have to, I was born with a Southern accent, and although I've lived in California for decades now, it's always still there. So I have to be very clear in my website. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn every day. I'm the only Vaughn Sigmon on LinkedIn. So you can find me there easily. There's no copycats yet. Uh,
No AI clone trying to
no,
be Vaughn.
not yet.
Good.
But anyway, yeah, and I appreciate you asking that. I'd love for them to come and see how I can help.
Fantastic. Well, you guys heard it here first. Mr. Sigmund, he's ready for you. Thank you so much again for your time. It was a very insightful conversation.
True pleasure, Carolyn. Thank you.